I'd like to open up the school committee meeting with the first item on our agenda, which is the acceptance of minutes.
Motion to accept the minutes of the May 11th meeting.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor? That's 4-0, Colleen. Next item on the agenda is the chairperson's report. I'd like to just take this time to make a presentation. We were going to make this presentation at town meeting, but due to unforeseen circumstances, we were not able to. Every year, the town of Maynard recognizes really its most valuable player-type employee award. So it's an employee recognition award. Chairman Chris De Silva is here tonight to help me present the award, and I'd like to just take a moment to read the letter that Dr. Girardi submitted on behalf of the school committee. And it says, "Dear Chairman De Silva, the school committee and I would like to nominate Colleen Moore for the 2017 Performance Recognition Program. The reason for her nomination is her dedication to the community and her tireless efforts as an employee in the town of Maynard. She is truly the glue that holds the Maynard Public Schools together. Colleen started her service to the schools as a Green Meadow PTO member and a parent volunteer in the Green Meadow office. She was hired as a Green Meadow secretary in 1991. In 1999, Colleen was promoted to the position of Superintendent's Administrative Assistant. Since 2002, she has also been the Transportation Coordinator. The following examples of her outstanding achievements are listed under the selection criteria being used this year. Exceptional managerial, organizational, and/or communications achievements. Colleen has instincts like the character Radar O'Reilly in the television series MASH. Colleen, Bob put that in, so if it's not complimentary, I just want to say, most of us don't get the reference.
Oh, I get it. It's funny.
She regularly schedules meetings and prepares required documents for supervisors before these needs are even requested. She has extensive personal contact with school department personnel, including principals, teachers, and other staff, and members of the community, including parents, students, and town officials. Colleen communicates to all of these constituents in the utmost professional manner with a personal touch. Under achievement of significant improvements in productivity and/or cost savings in department operations, it says, in her role as transportation coordinator, Colleen knows every street in the town and the most efficient way to schedule the bus routes. Many other districts hire consultants with software to do this task, or worse, other districts allow the vendor to create the routes when the vendor has a financial reason not to be efficient. In 2012, Colleen identified an annual cost savings for the Maynard Public Schools budget that could be realized by changing the start time of one school and reducing the number of buses required per school run. This one change has saved the town of Maynard $40,000 annually. Colleen has a knowledge of the community and the schools through the eyes of a parent whose children have attended Maynard Public Schools and are now successful adults. Her intuition about the community needs is qualitative data that is very important for the school department to understand. Colleen has a passion for the town of Maynard and her profession. Her dedication to this community through her employment for the last 16 years, as well as her other civic activities, including being a Maynard Girl Scout leader and a catechist at St. Bridget's, make her the ideal candidate for the 2017 Performance Recognition Program. We strongly recommend her nomination and are hopeful she will be recognized this year. So Colleen, thank you very much for everything.
By the way, Dawn's phrase was the glue that holds the school together. Yeah. I took that from
I have nothing to do with the radar thing. I don't know what that is. Okay.
Oh, good idea.
Oh, thank you, Treasurer. Hey, Colleen.
Oh,
we're gonna pretend you're shaking Chris's hand. Nice try.
Including your reaction picture.
I don't really need that. I just came tonight to present you with the clock and thank you on behalf of the selectmen and the town administrative staff for all your contributions and all the things that, all the things that Bob said. I'm not going to call you Radar O'Reilly, but we do appreciate it, and we're happy to present you with that award this year, and we look forward to next year's presentation as well. So thank you very much, and thanks for having me.
Thank you, Chris. Have a good night. And now I'll turn it over to Dr. Girardi for the superintendent's report. That's a good idea.
Governor Baker attended the Massachusetts Association of School Superintendents spring meeting last Thursday. He identified that the economic recovery is not translating into additional revenue, which is an unusual phenomenon due to the increase in automation and productivity advancing faster than wages and spending. He is concerned that the state will have trouble increasing municipal and school funding. However, even with the funding concerns, the governor is committed to increasing computer science curriculum and career and technical opportunities. And we're looking forward to working with the governor to try and make those sort of things happen. But we're also very proud of the fact that Maynard has been ahead on those initiatives for quite some time now. So we're proud of the fact that we're ahead of those initiatives, but we're also looking to expand them. So I just wanted to point that out, that that's the direction the governor would like us to go in, and I think that's a good direction for our community. Thank you.
And now I'll turn it over to student representative reports. And if you guys don't just mind introducing yourself, since we have more of a crowd than normal.
Oh, hi, I'm Janelle
It's nice to have
Carr.
all three of you, by the way.
Oh, yes.
I'm Olivia. And I'm Sophia. So, last week, was it 2 weeks ago, we had prom, which was a really, really successful night. There was a lot of hard work that went into it from a lot of people, and overall, we had, I think, 200 people attend our prom, which was huge. I think the normal turnout's like 110, around there, so we had a really good turnout. Graduation?
So we're working really hard to try and get graduation put together. It's June 10th at 4, if any of you guys want to come. It should be good this year. Hopefully it doesn't rain. But yeah, that's kind of been an ongoing project.
And then we just wanted to say, this is really high. Okay. We just wanted to say that the baseball and softball teams both made it to the playoffs, so that was pretty cool. And they're having all their games. I know they've been having like games constantly because of the weather, unfortunately, but yeah, that's basically it. And then students are just kind of anxious to be getting their schedules and stuff. We're waiting to hear back about that. I know that's been in the works, and students have just been kind of getting more clarification on what's kind of going on, and everybody's kind of a little bit less stressed out at the moment, so it's pretty good up at the high school right now. Nothing really else to say, I think, right?
I just wanted to give a thank you to the school committee because I think this is my last meeting. It's been a great 3 years. It's definitely taught me how to be a better presenter, how to be more outgoing. But yeah, I just wanted to thank you all.
Thank you, Janelle.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Have seniors had their last day, or when is it?
We have not. It's May 31st.
May 31st. Awesome.
Did you hear anything? So I was there for senior project presentations. Have you heard anything about that? I'd love to hear from your perspective about that.
Yeah, good. Do you want to talk about it?
Sorry to put you on the spot for that one.
There was one senior project that we got an email about. I just thought it was like the coolest thing. Her name's Emma Vendel, and she basically did, I think she was researching Alzheimer's disease, and she went around the school and had people video like their memories, their best memory or their funniest memory or best memory from high school, etc. And then she compiled them all onto a website. So you can basically go onto this website and click like class of 2018, class of 2017, and you can click and there's a bunch of people's names and you can see the videos talking about their memories, and I don't know, I thought it was the coolest thing. That was an awesome project.
And then I know also next year, usually you have an option as a senior to do like
capstone, mentorship, or senior project. And what we've heard so far from our guidance office is that it's just going to be senior project offered as like a thingy. Or thingy, not thingy, sorry.
That is the technical term, I'm sure.
And I thought that was actually kind of a cool thing because a lot of kids thought that if they didn't do mentorship, they wouldn't be prepared for like the field or like education or something. But it's actually pushing students to go for like internships and things like that and really focus on the research part of their topic that they're doing for senior projects. So I thought that was a cool thing.
I would have to say going through senior project, it's definitely a great idea to make it a requirement for everybody. Personally, I ended up in a really, really great internship, and it's led me to thinking about majoring in or going on a pre-law track, and I'm also interning over the summer, so yeah.
That's great.
Thank you.
Good luck at Alabama.
Yes.
Thank
Best of
you.
luck.
Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
The next portion of the meeting is called Citizens' Comments. So if you have a comment on anything that's not going to be discussed tonight, please join us at the microphone, and we just need your first name.
My name is Paula Copley. I actually came here tonight to see the video of the trip to Guatemala, but I was one of the judges for the Capstone Senior Project, and I thought as I was sitting there, you should all be really aware of the wonderful job. I work at Middlesex Savings Bank. I'm one of the managers, and I invited my regional manager, who oversees 6 branches of in this area, and you know, I wanted her to just, you know, get involved. She's involved in many aspects of the town. And the both of us came out of the, at the end of the project and just looked at her, and she said to me that was the best afternoon. And she's exposed, as I am, to a lot of community events in different towns, and the seniors they were fantastic. I had 3 students, one who did concussions in sports, another one who did, it's called synthetic analysis. You'd have to have her explain it to you. And the other one was an exchange student from Norway, Morten, who did violence in video games. So those were the 3 that I saw, and I wish I could have seen every single student because they did a fantastic job. I think you were there too, Mr. Girardi, and it just was it blew my mind. And I have 2 kids that are in Maynard High School, so I'm so excited for my daughter to do her senior project. But you just should know that it was wonderful, and please keep it up. And love to get more community members involved in part of the judging and the whole procedure. Jackie and I are on the board. Well, actually, it's not a board. We'd love to create a board so that we can take some of it away from the burden of the teachers, from Jean and Paul, just so that we could do some of the outside stuff that they don't have to do. So that's something that we're going to work on in the future. But yeah, they did a great job. Good job, the seniors that are here. Good job. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Paula.
I'm going to concur with Paula. I was invited to be on the panel too, as well as Beth Lynn was there. And I walked away being I'm always really proud of our students anyway, but I just walked away with such a great pride for our students and what they achieve when going through the school system. I also had three panels. Ryan was one of them. The students were amazingly poised, self-confident. They had done so much research in so many different facets throughout the year. So just kudos to them as usual, and to the program. And I am also totally keen on having as many of the students as we possibly can participate. Of course, Jean LaBelle and Paul Orzik were saying, and I'm speaking to everybody here, how many more panelists, the people that come and listen to them are going to be needed next year, because this year I think they had 45 students, and of course next year they're going to have about 90. So just as soon as the date comes out, if you can commit to it, it would be great. But anyway, it was a great day. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Well, speaking of our amazing students, I know I'm looking forward to seeing the Guatemala presentation, so if you guys are ready, we'd love to see it. Jen, if you could just introduce yourself if you wouldn't already.
Sure. I'm Jen Adams. I'm a Spanish teacher at Maynard High School, and I'm here with some of my great students. There are 5 out of the 6 that went to Guatemala. We went most of the students were working on senior projects, and then we had 2 underclassmen go, which they were able to contribute and hopefully take something away maybe for the future for their projects, since there's going to be a requirement for everybody. So we put together, with the help of a couple teachers and parents and our chaperones and everybody, we have a video of some of the pictures and some information from the students about what they did.
I wanted to go to Guatemala because I saw it as a new opportunity and a way to immerse myself in another culture and learn the language of Spanish more so than I knew, and be able to practice with people who speak Spanish every day. And it was also a great volunteer opportunity and different than anything I've ever done before.
The trip to Guatemala was to just go to Guatemala. And to experience the culture and, see new things, definitely learn some Spanish. And in that aspect, I think we got a lot out of it.
Jackie Rogers has a non-profit organization called Global Goods, and a portion of the proceeds that they make go to Jardín de Amor, and they help fund the things that they're doing and provide things for the kids.
We helped collect donations and pack all the donations and bring the donations down and distribute them at the school, but a lot of the donations came from Jackie, and she put a lot of work into collecting them and helping us communicate with the school. Jardín de Amor is a school with 3 classes in it. There are 3 classrooms, so there's 1 first grade classroom, 1 second grade classroom, and 1 third grade classroom. And there's sort of a little courtyard in the middle where the kids go for their recess. There are about 100 kids that attend the school in the morning, so 1st through 3rd grade, which is what we worked with for the 4 days that we were volunteering there. And it's a very loving place. All the kids are all very happy, and the teachers really, really care about the kids, and you can tell just by the way they run their classes and just the way they talk to the kids and treat the kids. It's definitely different than schools here. So a typical day at Jardín de Amor consisted of recess and just classes, and sometimes the kids are given a meal in the morning just because they usually can't get that type of nutrition at home, so the school tries to supplement the food that we would get there in the morning. We would go to recess with the kids for about half an hour, and then we would go into their classes and either help with what the teacher was already teaching, or we would teach what we planned to teach. So Katie and I taught dental hygiene.
Katie and Janelle did some awesome stuff with the dentistry and hygiene. I thought that was really cool.
And Adam, Owen, and Alex taught English.
Like for the kids who weren't doing senior project, Adam and Jenny, they definitely got a lot out of it. I think Adam got to really improve on Spanish, and I think he got to liking it even more than he already does. And I think that's cool. And Jenny got to go see the kids who she already knew, and saw them playing the recorders.
I got to see a group of students that I had taught the year before and see how they progressed, because we taught a recorder class in 2016, and we brought recorders down that were donated by Fowler and Maynard High school students, and we taught them a couple notes and a couple songs, and this year we got to see them again, and they had hired a real music teacher, and they were playing new songs with new notes and learning all different things about music, and it was a lot of fun to see.
It wasn't all learning. We also got to play recess with all the kids, and all that was pretty fun.
During recess, you'd have like 30, 40 kids come out and play soccer on this tiny little concrete slab, and they were using not kickballs, but like a smaller rubber ball, not real soccer balls, and they would make their own teams, kind of make their own rules, and they would enforce their own fouls, and they set up the goals with like 2 broken pieces of concrete, and then they just had their fun.
The most difficult part of the trip was moving on from one thing to another, because we spent a number of days at the school and then we had to leave to do other things, and it was really hard leaving the kids.
So I think before I heard this trip was gonna happen, Latin America or Central America was not somewhere I was like really wanting to go that much. If I had the opportunity, I would go back.
I think I definitely know now that I want to travel a lot, and definitely to Latin America and South America, because I definitely know that I'd be able to kind of make my way through it. So I'm not limited to like certain parts of Europe and Australia, New Zealand.
The biggest impact that this trip had on me was learning to look on the bright side of things, because you see how little a lot of the kids at the school have, and then you see what we have, yet they always seem to be so happy and optimistic.
So if I had to do the Guatemala trip over again, I think I would just make it a little bit longer, spend more time at Jardín de Amor. I think that was like very impactful and interesting, and I learned a lot. And in terms of how this trip impacted my my plans for the future, I'm actually kind of considering Latin American studies as a major in college, in part because of Guatemala trip and Cuba trip. And I definitely would like to become more fluent in Spanish. It's like very fun to try to communicate in another language where you're still learning. And at this point, Spanish is like, I'm kind of at that point where it's like, it's not so hard that it's like painful to communicate, and it's not so easy that it's boring to communicate. It's like still kind of an adventure every time you open your mouth.
My favorite part about volunteering was seeing how the kids would react to just like the presence of other people who cared enough to be there and help them out. Like, they appreciated that.
I think the one thing that you definitely saw there was that kids like to go to school. They really, really loved it. And I don't think you really see that in the United States as much. I think because people kind of take it for granted. It's one thing that I definitely noticed, was that they're a lot happier than American kids, which was not what I expected.
My favorite part of volunteering was being able to see how happy the kids were. They really didn't have a lot, but they were still just so happy, and it made me think about my life more and how fortunate we are. But I really just loved being able to talk to the kids and having them, just come over and hug you spontaneously, or just having them want to have you there with them was just a really great feeling.
The food was awesome.
So All those great pictures were possible by Mary Finnegan, who was in none of them, but she was our chaperone, our other chaperone, who took all of the pictures. And it was definitely my honor to travel with these students. They were amazing every single day, jumped right into everything that was happening at the school without batting an eye, without asking for direction, just going with it. So I think that they might want to say a couple of words. Or they're going to say a couple of words.
That'd be great.
Yeah, 5 of them are here. So if you have any questions for them, they are here.
My name's Owen Hale. I'm a senior who pretty much has finished high school, I guess, at this point. All of the rest of my days are optional, so I'm done. I went on the Cuba trip last year and now the Guatemala trip this year as part of my senior project, and that was to study the malnutrition crisis in Guatemala, which affects about half the population. And my actual project was to bring down 4.5 years worth of daily dose multivitamins. And the internship kind of part of that was just working at the school, talking to Julio, the man you saw in, I think, 2 or 3 of the pictures, who founded the school and runs it. And he's a great guy, and he really cares about all the kids and their daily lives. I mean, he found out that after starting the school, some of the kids go home and they'll have 1 meal a day. So he started to buy food and bring it in and feed them breakfast and lunch. So it was just awesome to work with him. Working with the kids was amazing. I said in the video that they're happier than American students, and I still believe that. They'll go out and they'll play soccer and they'll push each other down. A few kids were throwing punches and they just walked away. Like, once they settled their little grievance, they just went on smiling and playing soccer. So I think that's one thing that we don't really get that much anymore in the United States, since our child rearing is so sterile, I guess. If I ran playing soccer and I tripped and fell on a concrete slab that hadn't been cleaned, I don't know when, there would have been an adult there, and I probably would have been crying on the ground. But these kids, they just got up and kept playing. And I think that was one of my favorite parts, was just playing soccer with the kids. Thank you. And one more thing, I do just want to thank the school committee for allowing us to do this and for helping out with some of the funding. None of this would have been possible without you guys, so thank you all.
Oh, and how did you all pick this trip? Like, did you happen to have an interest, or?
I'm not really sure how Guatemala got picked. Having gone on the Cuba trip, I knew that if another opportunity came up, I definitely would have taken it. And I think it was between this and Ecuador, is that right? Kind of in the beginning of the year. And then once it was decided that it was Guatemala, I signed up and went.
Thank you.
All right, hi, my name is Alex Cusick. I also did the Guatemala trip as part of my senior project, which was looking at whether we should kind of change America's asylum policy in light of the Central American refugee crisis. And Ms. LaBelle actually suggested a trip to Guatemala as my project, or she brought it up at least. And I was a little taken aback. I was like, kids don't go to Guatemala. That's like not a thing that happens. But then I was kind of had a second thought. I was like, all right, that's the most amazing thing that could happen my senior year. Like, that's incredible. And I was still kind of skeptical until it actually came to fruition. Like, I couldn't really believe it was happening. It was so cool. And that's really a testament to your guys' faith in whatever, our students at Maynard High School, and senior project, and just your generosity. It was an incredible experience. Kind of, as always, going to a foreign country I feel like it changes your perspective most once you get back to the States. Like going down to Guatemala, it's a completely different way of life, in a way that's really, kind of, I don't know, it heightened my perspective, my understanding of how we live here in America. And I mean, it's hard to explain, but it changes the way you look at everyday life here, which is something you don't get from learning about a place like Guatemala in the classroom. Also, it was a huge help learning Spanish. Learning Spanish in the classroom is difficult, to say the least, and just being immersed in the language and the culture in Guatemala was super helpful. I feel like I've been studying Spanish for a while, and my fluency just got exponentially better while we were down there. Yeah, and it was just an amazing experience, and thank you so much for it. It was, yeah.
I love that you said, it really hit you when you came back in some ways, how it changes your perspective of home. And I wondered, I'm sure that's hard to explain, but is there something that when you came back you saw totally differently, or just what are some of those realizations and thoughts that you had about the United States in returning?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think this kind of goes back to what Owen said as well, but how much we take for granted. And how much we don't appreciate what we have, which is, whatever, it's kind of a reiteration. But in Guatemala, there's not enough stuff. Like, they don't have enough food. There's not enough money. There's not enough healthcare. There's not enough education. And here we have enough of everything, and we kind of assume that we've always had enough, and because we're America, we deserve to always have enough. And just the way that manifests itself in everyday life it's very subtle. Just in things like how much kids don't care about school sometimes. Obviously, you don't want to hear that. You're the school committee, but I think all of us here.
And we're well aware.
Yeah, and I think, many kids really do care about school, and we have some of the best opportunities for education, and many kids really do take advantage of that. But the kids in Guatemala were 100% enthusiastic about every aspect of the school day, which is something that in America, it's like you go to school just because it's what you do. Like, it's a routine, whereas the kids at Jardín de Amor were just absolutely gleeful about the school and everything about it, and that was really cool to take part in and just see. Yeah.
You did a good job putting something into words that was hard to put into words. Very well done.
Hi. I think you all know me, but so I went on the Guatemala trip as part of my senior project too. The senior project was I didn't really stay on one topic the whole year. I started off researching standardized testing, and then I heard about the Guatemala trip, and it was more that I wanted to go to Guatemala, and I ended up sharing a project with Katie Campbell, and what we did is we taught dental hygiene at Jardín de Amor. We collected toothbrushes, toothpaste, dental floss, and we brought the donations down, and we taught them all about brushing their teeth and how many times a day, so on and so forth. It was just an amazing experience. It was more than I could have hoped for. It was truly once in a lifetime. You don't really think, I don't know what I had for expectations when I first decided to go. I didn't really know what I was getting into because I've never volunteered in a foreign country. Definitely, it was a lot more emotional than I thought it would be. I got very attached to the kids at Jardín de Amor. We were only there for 4 days, but after 4 days, it really killed me to leave them because you just see how unfortunate they are, and you wish you could help them. You wish you could stay and help, and you have those resources, and you can come back and help them, and it just kills you to leave them. And I would honestly say I would go back in a heartbeat. Overall, it was an amazing experience.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Adam. I'm a sophomore at Maynard High, and when I heard that there's a trip to Guatemala, I was thinking, like, I've never really had any plans at all to go here, but the opportunity's here, and I'm learning Spanish, and some friends are going, so I was like, yeah, let's do it. And I went, and it really, like, people have been saying that it changes your perspective of America, but what I was thinking, like, when you go there, before, like, people were warning me, like, it's dangerous, you know, be careful. Guatemala is said to be like a dangerous country, and I didn't feel threatened one time while I was there, and that makes me like think other places that are considered dangerous in the world, like how bad could it be, like, and just like the small things like that will change your perspective on a lot of things. So yeah, I'm just want to thank the school committee and Dr. Girardi for making this opportunity possible.
When you look back on this trip in 10 or 15 years, what's the one thing that'll come into your mind first?
It's been said, but it's hard not to think of the kids and like how they act with such little things. Like we have so much, and we're not all smiling at school and like having fun, and we're not enthusiastic to learn. But that's what I'll remember, just like the opportunity to learn is so important for so many people, and we take that for granted here. So,
awesome. Thank you.
Thanks.
Good evening. I'm Mary Finnegan, and I'm the speech therapist in grades 5 through 12 here in Maynard. And I really want to thank you all so much for allowing me to be a chaperone on this incredible trip. You would have been so proud of our students. They were absolutely stellar. And as Mrs. Adams said, they jumped right in. Their Spanish skills were excellent. Thank you to Mrs. Adams. These kids were something to be proud of, and it really says a whole lot about what our school system is crafting. Thank you so much. It was just an incredible experience.
Thank you.
So I just wanted to say a quick thank you to Mrs. Adam. Oh, Jackie, do you want to speak? Sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt.
I could probably talk for a few hours. I mean, it was amazing. And it's kind of been a dream of mine, having been a former teacher at Maynard High for a number of years, to now bring some students to one of my projects that I have been supporting through Global Goods. And Jen Adams and I, Mary Finnegan and I, we've been friends for a long time. And Jen and I started talking about the possibility of going to Guatemala with some of our Maynard High School students. And thanks to your support and encouragement and a tremendous amount of work on Jen's part, it came to fruition. And without duplicating everything that's been said, these kids were astounding. They jumped in for sure. Their Spanish skills were excellent. But what really surprised me, I think, was the fact that they were tremendously insightful as well. Jen has a great approach to when she takes students on a school trip. At night, we had what would be called a debriefing, and we'd sit around in kind of a circle and just sort of talk about the day, and she would throw out some questions. And it brought out so much in the kids. I mean, you've already seen some of the responses and the experiences and how they reacted to them. It was tremendously gratifying. I keep using the word tremendously, but that's how it was. It was just an excellent experience for all of us as adults, but for the kids, I think it has really changed some of their perspectives in a profound way. And I know a lot of them want to go back. And I hope we can just, keep this kind of thing going on. It's, to do volunteer work is very different than just going to tour. And Jen and I are already talking about some other places too that, maybe with Global Goods support as well. But thank you so much for being so supportive. And I do want to emphasize this would not have happened without Jen being a mover and a driver. She was amazing, with not only as the teacher, but as a real committed community member to improve the perspective of our students. It was just great. Thank you.
So I just wanted to thank our chaperones and our amazing Jen Adams, because I think it's so clear to me, although I only have a 7-year-old, how much of a difference you make at the high school with the students. I just have never seen, I'm getting used to all of this. I have no background in education, but just, you are just such a great example of the teachers we would love to have in Maynard. So thank you so much. It is so clear the difference you make. I hope you know that. I know it's a long year, and it's a long budget season, and it's all this long, terrible stuff, but this is why we all do it, and I just want to say thank you. You do much more than we do up here. Jackie, thank you very much. Mary, thank you for going. And kids, this is awesome. I'm so glad you get the chance to go between this and Cuba. I love that we're exposing the kids to more opportunities, and I think this is just another example of what makes Maynard small but amazing. So just thank you all for making it happen and being great students that we don't even worry when you leave the country. We know we send some of our greatest but youngest residents, so thank you all.
I, too, would like to thank Jen Adams and all of the chaperones and everybody who helped in their different ways, Jackie, for having the amazing connection with the school. And I know Jennifer and Jen Gaudette and I speak a lot about future programs. We definitely want to continue these service learning programs and a lot of other opportunities for our students. For the students, I was a reluctant traveler. I don't like to fly, and the staff, they know that. But as part of these global initiatives, I had to, and just like you, it opened my eyes that the world is very small, and we really need to understand everybody's differences and become a part of the world. So I really appreciate that you're ambassadors of that, and you're going to carry that on for us. So thank you so much to our students for taking the risk when you were concerned that it was a dangerous place. Thank you for taking that risk and for becoming global citizens. Thank you.
Anything else? There's no pressure.
Thank Danielle Mannion, who put that video together for us on a super busy week, and she finished that up.
I guess the last thing, I just want to say, I've just seen this before, and I'm sure many people have, but what everyone experienced, you will bring with you and carry through with you. It will just impact how you see things moving forward, and it'll pop up in like funny times and funny ways, and I just applaud everyone for being able to have this, because it just connects our common humanity and helps us to move forward in really hopeful ways with each other. So that's it. Thank you.
If there's nothing else, we'll move on to the FY18 budget. Very exciting stuff. Thank you all for coming out tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
So in terms of the budget discussion, if you didn't get a copy at the front of the room on the chairs, there's a copy, looks like a grid. We'll start the discussion on the final budget cuts and additions with up to 30 minutes of public comment. So if anyone wants to make a comment, we're going to limit it to 30 minutes tonight, but I'd like to open up with that. So if anyone would like to make a comment, please join us at the microphone. We just need your name and your comment. Hi, Meg.
Hi. All right, see, I didn't even need to do that. That was easier. On the list, it says eliminate, what I assume to mean 0.5, not 5 total Green Meadow assistant principals. I think it's just a decimal error. But I know previous versions of this had mentioned reducing the Fowler principal to 0.5 and then having that be a job share. Is that still what it is?
That's what it represents.
Okay, so eliminating a 0.5 assistant principal. So, and in terms of an actual person, it would be reducing 0.5 of a person, vice principal, at Fowler. What would be the things that the vice principal at Fowler then would not be doing? Like, what's going to come off of that person's plate, so to speak? Because it seems as though with 0.5 at 2 buildings, there would have to be some changes to the job in order for that job to be done effectively.
So it's going to be a challenge, obviously. Our principals obviously have to prioritize safety concerns, discipline, those sort of fires that happen every day. And that's going to have to be the priority. The vice principals do a lot of evaluation of staff, so now they're going to be reduced from their participation, which then puts more of a burden on the principal to get those evaluations done. But the principals will have to prioritize how they're going to shift those responsibilities. But those, I guess what I would say is that the priorities away from the academic initiatives that principals work on, and it's not just, not just evaluations. Evaluations is actually something that's an obligation too, but there's a lot of, we have our principals and assistant principals take on different initiatives every year. They work on things like updating handbooks and those sort of things. Those are the sort of things that probably will be lower on the priority totem pole, and the principals will have to figure out how to prioritize all that. You just saw a wonderful initiative. Those are the kind of things that come from exciting teachers who present that to a principal, and then the principal presents it to the curriculum director or assistant superintendent, and then they all work on it. Those are the kind of initiatives that, we hope to maintain, but will we grow? I don't know if we're going to grow academically, but these are the things that, happen.
And I know that Jennifer Gaudette has been working on social emotional learning of students, and I do see a need for that at Fowler, and especially with behavior of students, but also we've been talking a lot at our school about students who may have trauma, and also just students who need different learning styles. And it seems as though perhaps our assistant principal would be somebody who would be a great resource for that. And I would have concerns about being able to do what Jennifer has been working actually for a couple of years since she arrived, and being able to actually be able to use that as a goal and continue to work on that with just a 0.5 vice principal, with the extra 120 students coming down from the high school, who I would say is a challenging age group to be dealing with. So I would expect that the concerns, or that the job that you mentioned in terms of a vice principal being able to, or having to prioritize the safety of students, and making sure that students feel safe, and that vice principal being able to communicate with parents about needs that are seen, I'm concerned that that workload is being increased and the availability of that person would be decreased. And so I'm worried that even saying some of the things that are normally an assistant principal's job are going to come off the plate, I'm worried that we're setting up the school for some issues. I'm worried that we're setting up the students who need this support and need this guidance most for continued problems. And I'm worried about the teachers who sometimes all we need is just to have the vice principal come in and say, I just need your support. I just need you to help me. When we think about classroom management and new teachers, it's truly not the mentors who are doing those things. It's the vice principal who can come in and say, here's what's going to work, and I'm going to support you all the way. And so I would ask you to look at that. And I've been in many of these discussions, and I know that Kevin Caruso has not necessarily advocated for middle school sports, but he has recognized that that's something that he is willing to give up for the greater good, and I see it not on this list. And I think Kevin Caruso is somebody who is the assistant principal up at the high school, would want to help Fowler in whatever way possible to support students, to set them up for success, as they transition out of Fowler, and as someone who would have experienced 8th grade needs, I think that if we asked him, that he might support that idea of saying, he might be willing to make that adjustment in order for that. And I think that we won't want to make this kind of an experiment where we say, let's add back in 8th grade. 120 of them is approximately the 7th grade class, and reduce the ability of the vice principal to ensure student safety as well. I think those are too many variables that we're kind of testing at the same time. And so I would encourage you to look at this as an opportunity to say, maybe we try out just one of those variables with bringing back 8th grade and seeing how that goes before deciding that the vice principal's position could be reduced and could be shared. Thank you.
Thank you.
Justine St. John. I just have a couple questions. So if it's listed that there's no number next to it, that means that it's no longer a cut, correct? Correct. All right, perfect. The Fowler football assistant coach, Fowler doesn't have a football team.
That may be misnamed, but we had a really
Okay.
long talk with Kevin Caruso. I think you were at the meeting, the budget subcommittee meeting.
Oh, I must have missed that. Okay.
Yeah,
And,
no, it's they're labeled as Fowler, but it's actually an assistant coach that they use in the high school team. But we have it listed.
Okay, all right. Just
And
curious.
And just to be clear, although those are listed as cuts, because they are being cut from the overall operating budget, apparently we have a new co-football team with AMSA, and those kids
I
will
heard
all
that.
be, yep. So they will all be paying the activity fee, so Kevin can fund these with that activity fee. So they're listed as a cut, because they are cut. and
From
we
your
should-
budget.
Exactly.
Yeah, excellent. And one further clarification, the .9 FTE guidance that is a restore, along with the Green Meadow Special, which is a restore, which is awesome.
Yes.
The guidance, is that something that you're anticipating is going to come back to Fowler, or is that going to be high school, or do you not know that yet?
You know, in some ways, I never want to say we're still thinking about it, because that sounds like we don't know what we're doing. But I know that I want to always give Jen the ability, and Bob, to deploy the resources, like if something changes over the next few months. So I know that Meg spoke very well about the loss of a full-time vice principal at Fowler.
Right.
One of the schools of thought is bring more guidance into that building.
Exactly,
I mean, it
yes.
could be necessary at Green Meadow as well. I just don't want to pigeonhole anything tonight. But I think the need has been recognized in both buildings, especially with the 8th grade coming back. So that's a great question, and that's certainly where the thinking is going. I just don't, the school committee has one role, and then I just want to make sure these guys have what they need to do over the summer to work with the principals and decide what's needed where. So if that gives you any idea, we do have the discussions, but it's a little bit of a moving target.
Excellent. Well, thank you, and thank you very much for restoring, because I know a lot of times, once it's gone, it feels like it's gone. So we really appreciate it. Thank you.
Oh, absolutely. I had the opportunity to go to the MEF celebration last week. Was it last week? The days are blending together, where we celebrated all the MEF grants to the teachers and the students and all the wonderful things that they're doing. And I actually stayed long after the event wound down, talking to a number of parents about the budget process. And I took the opportunity to make them abundantly aware of how much we take the feedback from these meetings into account. And I talked about the tally sheets and writing down every person's name who came up during the 4 different occasions where we talked about budgets and cuts and impacts and what do we truly value. So I think that this document is a little bit of an indication of how much we're listening to the involved members of the town right now that are coming out. And ideally, we would love to save everything. It's just not the position we're in. But I think the guidance and the specials at Green Meadow and possibly, putting some secretaries back in the buildings, although at a reduced role, we're listening to the value that people place on these individuals and these roles, and we're trying to respond to it. So
Great. Thank you very much.
sure thing.
Thank you. there's no further comment, we'll cut it off, and then the school committee will begin their deliberation. So if there's anything, any last minute, just stand up.
For those who don't know me, Sean Cronin, AFSCME Council 93. I'm the union rep for the custodians as well as the secretaries. So I have a question for the committee because while I'm happy to see the restoration of the full-time custodians, I'm concerned with the secretary cuts. We have a bargaining unit right now. They work 38 hours a week, sometimes in excess of that. And that was actually one of the first things they told me, how most of them stayed 20 minutes late, arrived 30 minutes early on a regular basis. And to fill them with 19-hour employees, where's that work? How's that work going to be cut out of their roles? Where's it going to go? How's it going to get done?
So, one of the things that we had looked at was that the town was kind enough to buy us new software. The parents have been asking for automation of things like registration, which we know sometimes the secretaries are doing that for weeks at the beginning of the school year, and that's really, those are the sort of things that really overwhelm us at times, our staff. But I think that since the town bought this new software, the automation will help reduce the load. The other thing is that we're going to add in, instead of having the 38 hours a week, we'd like to have the 10-month employees, we're having the 12-month secretaries stay at each building. So there's been a variation of 10, 12, 11, and 12-month secretaries at different buildings. But what we're recommending is that we make sure that each building has a 12-month secretary. And then you'll see at the bottom where it says potential additions that part-time staff was considered. And we did that in the past with the custodians when we felt that we needed more staff, but the town really didn't want us to hire more staff. We went with part-time custodians. And our hope is, like in this case with the custodians, that at some point we could put full-timers back on, but in the meantime, at least we're providing extra support of half-timers, which is what we did when we felt the need for additional custodians, and the town didn't have the money for us to hire full-time custodians. We felt the need to provide the additional support one way or another, and that's what we're doing here. So those are, I guess, my summary of the thought that went behind the budget subcommittee when they were working on this.
Have we given any thought? AFSCME is the bargaining agent for all secretaries. How do we foresee this working into that agreement? I said AFSCME, we're the bargaining representative for all secretaries within the schools, so that would include the part-timers in this case. And I guess we haven't been approached, I guess, how that would work into their contract or how that would play out. And I don't know if there's been any thought on the school committee side of that, how that would work.
Well, I know we were in negotiations. That kind of stopped when the budget became an issue, and I guess we would continue to talk about that as we move forward.
Okay. I would encourage you to do so.
Yeah.
Thanks.
No, obviously, we'll continue to talk and work with we appreciate our secretaries and our secretaries union, so we will continue to talk.
Okay. Thank you.
I just had one question about the mentors being cut. I know it's not a huge amount of money, but I guess I would ask how the new teachers are going to be mentored if those positions aren't in place. Jen has an awful lot on her plate, and so if somebody could just address that.
Jen, would you mind? Sure. Because I know you work closely with the mentor leaders and the mentors, so she'll be able to explain.
So I've talked with so we have two different positions. We have the mentors, which is a new teacher comes in, they're assigned a mentor, and then we also have mentor coordinators, one in each building, that we will be pulling into grant. Actually, they're already in grant funding. So I've talked with a couple of those individuals about how that role could potentially change, and they would essentially be the mentors for new staff. The challenge with the mentor program, the way we run it and the way 90% of America runs their mentoring, is that the mentors are provided with a new teacher, but they're teaching full-time. Both the mentors and the new teacher are teaching full-time. And so there's a challenge in terms of providing coverage and observations and those sorts of things. So the idea was to shift some of those pieces to the mentor coordinators in each building. The other piece that this budget does do is restore, I believe, if I'm looking at the right draft, if I'm wrong, please correct me. We've gone through a lot of iterations. It does restore the teacher leader positions, and so that is also an opportunity for us to be able to provide some mentoring and support for new teachers in that capacity as well. So is it ideal? No, we would like to keep those pieces, but it's something that I think we might be able to do a little bit differently.
If there's no further comments, then the school committee will begin deliberations. So I'll open it up to the full committee. This document, I prepared it just to get us started tonight, just based on, we've had many, many meetings. We've had budget subcommittee meetings. We've had full committee meetings. We've gone to selectmen meetings, finance committee meetings. We've had some great input from the community, from the parents, from the staff, from the buildings. I know that Bob and Jen did a really great job meeting with everyone. So really, this was my attempt to just put it on paper based on some drafts we had presented to the full school committee earlier. This is my best attempt to share the pain. None of us want to really cut any of these things. I know that we have said that at prior meetings. We can approve as is, or any member can make a motion to make a change. And other than that, that's pretty much what's in front of us for tonight, but we do need to decide tonight.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yeah, of course.
So if I'm reading this correctly, maybe I'm not.
Yeah, it's fine.
If we approve as is, does that mean we're still short 3,431?
Yes, but Michelle assures me that we're okay with that as well.
All right, so it does balance with everything.
It does balance, yes.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, coming at you, Bob.
To the school committee, Dawn expressed the interest in making sure we get this done. Obviously, the sooner a decision is made, the sooner I can send out rescind letters on some of the people who got layoff letters. So obviously, we don't want to lose good staff, and the sooner the sooner you make a definite decision, the sooner I can start bringing people back. And we value our staff, so I want to make sure that I want to be able to do that. So I appreciate all the hard work that Dawn's done in a difficult year, and we've done together. But Dawn, thank you, for suggesting that it get done as quickly as possible.
I don't think anyone's enjoying leaving anyone in limbo, so.
I was going to say, I feel like because we've had a lot of discussion about this, that I'd love to hear from the other three who aren't on budget subcommittee. But I also wanted to know, per Meg's comment earlier, if we have a sense of, I know it's come up in our subcommittees, but it hasn't been on any lists about middle school sports. And so I'm wondering if those of us up here, if we have a sense of community thought on that, because I know we have other organizations in town that provide sports opportunities for kids, but I'm just raising it as a question. That's my hesitation.
It's a good and timely question, because I asked the exact same question this afternoon. I had an opportunity to be at central office because we were having a negotiation strategy meeting for one of our open contracts, and I quickly reached the understanding that we don't have quite enough information to make a decision on that yet. And I think that I proceeded down the path of understanding that if we find ourselves in a similar position next year, it's one of the first things that I'm willing to consider. But given the fact that I didn't know what the level of involvement in student middle school sports and student community-based sports was and what the potential impacts might be, it wasn't something that in this moment I was really willing to consider putting on the list, at least personally as a topic of conversation, because it's also not something that we have discussed with the community at large, and I didn't want to act in a rash manner. So you may be a little bit more aware of it, I just wasn't, and it left me with enough lingering doubt that when I saw that it was not something that we were actively considering in the moment, I just was more comfortable with that. But it's definitely an area that I'm willing to discuss in the future if we need to realize some cost savings on something.
And I will say, Mary, just to give you a quick update, I asked Jen to call Kevin Caruso and just double check the number in case it came up tonight, because my thing with middle school sports is it really hasn't been on the list, so I don't feel like we've actually had a chance to gauge the parents' understanding of how important that is to the middle school in Maynard. And he looked at his numbers again, and he wasn't counting the fees. So any potential savings of cutting it is actually much smaller. So I think we'd known the number of middle school sports being $29,000. It's much closer to $12,000. So if we did cut it, it doesn't get us very far. So I just put that out there for now. I still think Justin's point's excellent, that we have to look at it. And if it isn't clear, I think most of you have been at all the meetings, to be honest. All of this funding to get us even somewhere is one-time funding from the town. So we'll be having similar conversations next year unless there's some really good news on the revenue side or some things like that. So I think we'll be having discussions next year as well, but even what we're doing now is just, it gives us one more year to try to figure some solutions out. But it's not as big as a number as we thought, Mary. Yeah.
If I can weigh in on that piece too, because we did crunch some numbers in terms of how many kids are involved in sports, but because the fee is all encompassing, that was where is it 12, is it 29? It's probably frankly somewhere in between those two. And one of the things when this first came up as a topic of conversation with Kevin Caruso is that, I said, if this is something that you as the athletic director believe we could do without, even if it's not discussed this year, let's get some numbers, let's get some data, talk to surrounding towns, see how many towns offer middle school sports. So that's something that he's working on in terms of a project, so that we can spend the time as a community to make the decision about, is this where we need to allocate resources? As John said, hopefully we're not in this situation next year where we're talking about resources because we're cutting things, that something happens on the town side that will help that. But if we are, then that's great. And if we're not, then that's not where we want to put those resources. We could use them for some other things. So I think in terms of why it's not there and all of that, it's not as though it's something that we're ignoring. It's just we want good data before we recommend anything sort of to y'all to make decisions on.
I do have just a few things. So one, along the lines of social emotional learning, I think that many of you who have been in these conversations with us, and we've been really looking at that as a district and trying to authentically understand how we provide to students what's going to really help to impact that piece because of the major role that plays. And I think that that guidance counselor can really contribute to that piece. And so I think that that's something that one of the reasons that is clearly an item here on this list to restore, despite the other difficult cuts that are being made. So I just wanted to mention that. Also, one of the things that's on my mind being on the curriculum committee is just understanding we are really trying to take a look at the administrative side of things this time around. And we have an eliminating a special projects coordinator here, and I did want to just understand, and for everyone to understand the impact of that, because I think that's, we have Jen, who can hold the space. Obviously, every teacher in their classroom is doing what they can to bring curriculum alive, and the principals have their role, and the vice principals have their role. Jen is really trying to make sure that we're moving forward in that as a district, both horizontally within a grade and vertically through grades and many domains. So I just wanted to understand what that will mean if we lose that.
Sure. So essentially the way the special projects coordinator and I have worked is we've divided some pieces. He was, the person who's holding that role right now was here prior to my coming on board. So he continued with some of the work that he had done, but really there's sort of four major components of his work. One is he oversaw all the English learner issues and situations. He ran the English Learner Committee, which included teachers and English learner teachers and administrators. He also coordinated tried to do monthly meeting with the English learner teachers between the districts so we could make sure we're getting these students the services that they're legally required to have and that we were in compliance with that piece of it. He oversaw the review. We just finished our coordinated program review, which we do every 6 years. So he did the comprehensive review of our English learner program, and we'll be getting that report back sometime next year, where we will likely have, as you do with any program evaluation, things that you have to work on. So that was one of the major projects that will fall or come under my umbrella with the elimination of that position. It is a compliance piece. There are legal requirements, and it's, for those who don't know, it's something that's at the forefront of the state's attention because the state was sued and had a Justice Department finding a few years ago for not providing the services appropriately. So it's something that we really need to make sure we're paying attention to, as we should, because we need to service the students. The other another piece that he has coordinated has been the technology committee. He has worked with Peter Martin, the technology director. At this point, Peter Martin has resigned, and so we're looking at what we do with that position, and we've talked with people about some options there. So we sort of have two holes there that we will need to fill, and some thoughts in that component. And again, that technology committee, it's the digital learning committee. It created the 10-year technology plan. It was responsible for the implementation of the Chromebooks at the 8th grade level at the high school. So changing that from the iPads to that. The technology committee was also responsible for increasing instructional technology and making recommendations and trying to make sure that we were able to use the tremendous devices that we have to really transform our teaching and learning, and that's really where we were looking to go. So he oversaw all of those pieces. The other component that he has overseen has been the safety committee, or ALICE committee. We go back and forth between the two names. So essentially he coordinated with a teacher here at Fowler to co-chair that committee in connection with the police and fire department, community members, teachers, administrators, to make sure that our ALICE protocols were up to date. He was working with the principals and the co-chair of the committee to get our safety plans updated. We're looking at some software implementation that we could potentially use to increase our efficiencies if an emergency were to happen. Those are some of the pieces that, while technology is something that could use, could not use, we should use. The EL, English learners, and the safety committee, those are obviously priorities that cannot go away. So those are things we will have to figure out how we do and continue at the same level of capacity. The other thing that he has done, which I think has been a huge benefit not only to the administration but also to the teaching staff, he's sort of our resident expert in recertification and certification. So he has done an incredible amount of work with multiple teachers to deal with certification issues, whether it was they were trying to renew or a license had expired or they wanted to get certifications in a new area, to one, make sure that we were in compliance and that teachers were certified for the areas in which they were teaching, but then also in terms of if we needed to make a phone call or to figure out how a teacher could do something that they wanted to do. He was involved in those pieces as well. So those are sort of four of the major components of his work, and I'm sure there are many others that we will need to figure out. I've mentioned to a couple school committee members in particular that if I'm looking at priorities, and Dr. Girardi mentioned priorities, principals will have to prioritize. If I'm looking at our priorities for next year at the central office level, with the reduction of that position, social emotional learning is something that we have to prioritize given all of the pieces that we've seen and how we need to move forward. So that will be a priority initiative. In addition, the English learners, because we'll be getting our report back, that will be something and again, making sure that we're meeting our mandates. And then of course, safety of our students is our first concern. So making sure those are there. So those are sort of like three of the priorities. And then we have the inquiry learning and the writing and so all of the other academic initiatives, the initiative that we heard today with global learning, the pathways, and all of the other parts of our strategic plan that, that we will need to work on. So it will be a challenge, but as budget reduction exercises often are, it forces you to figure out how you can do the same or more with less. So it's something that we'll figure out and we'll work on, but it will certainly be a significant loss.
Okay. Thank you. I guess just mulling that over and knowing, just knowing the needs that we're trying to figure out how to help support the teachers around in the classrooms so that we can really move curriculum forward as a small district and what we have available to us and what we can do as far as just some, I don't know, I just think we've had some exciting and innovative things because we're smaller that we can look at that align without adding money. And I would just love for us to consider some way to even keep a piece of that. Because if your main things become the compliance things that are clearly important but are very, very more basic, the English learning and safety, I'd hate to see us not be able to move forward with some of the initiatives that we know are important we want to see happen. But not at the expense of, I just want to, everyone has their role, so I don't want to say that, I just think that piece will really help us to, from what we've seen, to hold a space to move us forward as a district, at the same time that we're dealing with some of these other cuts and trying to maintain the quality of the education for the kids.
So I hear that. I hear your concern. I hear everything Jennifer said. And I, of course, like to look at staffing in other districts. And we are small. And when you look at the 3 of the 4 districts that we compare ourselves to in terms of central office staffing, some have just, Hopedale has just a superintendent, no assistant superintendent. Millis has a superintendent and a curriculum director. Maynard has a superintendent and the assistant superintendent. West Bridgewater has both. But when you look at just numbers-wise, so right now that 55,000 is for a half-time employee. So it already is a part-time position that we're thinking of cutting. So I can't get behind that just when I look at our staffing numbers, but I'm open to what others have to say too.
I think this is one point that we tend to disagree on a little bit, and I think it's because I have such a hard time believing that there's an apples-to-apples comparison, and I feel like it's so hard to know about other districts and how they get it done, and are they getting it done. And I guess my concern about eliminating that fully, maybe there's a part-time option there, I'm not sure, is just that I know that this school committee representing the parents has really given Jennifer especially some major marching orders, right? Like, let's go from good to great, although I think we're somewhere in between. I don't like that phrase really for Maynard. We've given her a lot to do, and I will be very nervous if we suddenly start not being able to make those benchmarks. So I'm just going to put it out there as a concern. If any money frees up over the summer, it's probably something I would fight for, even if it's a 1 or 2 day a week position as opposed to a 4 day a week position. But that's just my one opinion. And, we all might have those things we'd like to bring back.
Right now it's 2.5 days per week, just to clarify.
Okay.
So, okay, because you were just saying 4.
Yeah,
so.
I thought it was 4, but sure.
I know that this sheet reflects a lot more than just, words on paper and numbers. I know there's a lot of time and, effort and a lot that's gone into this. And I know that just a thank you to the budget subcommittee for doing the subcommittee meetings and actually going through line item by line item and trying to make everything fit. As everybody else has said up here, this is the worst part about being in this position, the worst part every year. We never liked to cut things. We'd like to get to the point where we're adding things. We're fortunate this year to get some money back from town meeting, which is obviously a huge help, but doesn't get us exactly where we need to be. So as some of the other committee members said earlier, we do take into account what our constituents, the residents, the parents of Maynard have said, and I think that this reflects what we've heard so far from the beginning. as far as which things that our constituents find as a priority. So thank you to the Budget Subcommittee, and I would, I know that you guys have taken the time to go through this, so I feel comfortable with what is laid out here currently.
Can I just add some information regarding the special projects coordinator? I just conferred with Michelle, and it's so we can equate it to days per week, but the way it runs, it's 960 hours over the course of the year. So.
I didn't hear that.
Jennifer, I didn't hear any of that, I'm sorry.
Sorry, 960 hours over the course of the year for the special projects coordinator. So it's not days per week necessarily. It's not calculated that way.
Oh, okay.
And he doesn't charge us when he works on Saturdays. I do know that.
Thank you. Any final comments? Anyone's free to make a motion, or we can keep talking. We can do both, make a motion and have discussion.
I'll make a motion to approve the FY18 budget as constituted on the tally sheet tonight.
I'll second.
I would offer a friendly amendment that you're technically approving the FY18 reduction recommendations, not the overall budget.
All right.
Sorry.
Thank you.
I don't know how technical
I would
it
like
is.
to, yes.
I usually go with whatever's at the top of the page, to be
Yes,
honest, but-
yes, let's go with that. The FY18 reduction recommendations list.
I'll second that.
And now we can have more discussion?
I guess I would still say, I guess one of the reasons why why I love being up here is for the sake of seeing how we can move forward and the ways we can do that for the students and continue to improve and grow. And I know we'll do that. It could happen at a slower rate if we're not able to really have some people that can focus on helping to do the innovative pieces. But so I would just love for us to be able to look at trying to be able to have someone like a special projects coordinator or someone that could help even a little bit to help continue to move that forward. The inquiry-based learning, I just believe wholeheartedly that projects-based learning, that kind of thing just addresses the whole child, that it really helps kids from all different levels and engages them and helps bring the wonder of learning to them. So as much as I understand the importance of everything on this list, and I don't want to discount that, I would just like us to consider that piece. I'm sorry, this whole thing is emotional for me, and I thought I was doing much better with this than I apparently am. I know it's emotional for everyone else, so I wanted to keep my emotion out of it because it has nothing to do with what we need to do today. But
This is 2 years in a row.
In any case, so I would just like to have that as a consideration if we do have some money that free up, and not that anything else isn't important, but I just see that strategic piece, our strategic plan and the vision, and trying to really look at how we can best engage the kids in the wonder of learning.
But
at all
I
levels.
think that's fair, and depending on when the state ever finalizes their budget, if there is more money available, I think it's certainly within Mrs. Gaudette's purview to come to us and say, we do have some funds, here's a suggestion, and she might say save it for next year because we're already $275,000 in the hole, or she might say, look, with this funds, I can get this done. Is this important to the school committee? So I think that is always something I expect from Jen or Carol from special ed or Bob. So I think that, we're doing our best with the information and the funding we have right now, but we don't know what will happen at the state level. We don't know what, there are times that we're pleasantly surprised. So I don't want to say that and give false hope, but I know that I know that a number of people have said that position, no matter who it is really helping move some of the initiatives forward. So I think there's more discussion to be had on that, and we have all summer. So thank you for bringing that up, and then the full committee can talk about it.
I just wanted to put out, just for the sake of transparency, so I know that problems with comparisons, but if you look at just staffing for 2 main positions, right, in terms of dollars, so for Hopedale, $145,000, for Millis, $304,000, for Maynard with the special projects coordinator, $359,000, and for West Bridgewater, $277,000. So I'm just putting that out there because if it comes to a discussion, so
Sure.
our constituents can weigh in.
No, that's all good data to have. If there's no further discussion, I'll call the vote. All in favor? And that's 5-0. All right. Let's see, we have anything else? Members' comments and questions? I will just say that it's been a very long year, satisfying in some ways. We'll still be meeting this summer, although we might have a more limited schedule. But I know that all the members have expressed excitement for working more with the Board of Selectmen going into next year's budget season. So Chairman De Silva has already reached out to me to start trying to create a framework of what that will look like. And I'll report back to the committee. But I think although it's been a tough year this year for everyone, including the staff, I'm hopeful for next year. It seems like we're off to a better start with communication already. So I want to thank everyone for all their hard work. So not that I won't see you all summer here, but it just feels like a good time to say it. So thank you, everyone.
And Janelle reminded everybody of graduation on the 10th. And I'm going to go and represent the school committee, which gives me another opportunity to wear my cap and gown, or my gown and my hood. I enjoyed it last year, shaking the hands of all of our new graduates, and really looking forward to shaking everybody's hand after they shake Dr. Girardi's this year as well and receive their diplomas. So let's hope for good weather so that we can do it outside this year.
Thanks for representing. That's excellent. All right, motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All right. All in favor? Thank you, everyone.